Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am your 53rd favorite dad in the family communities, Papa West, Jacob West. You might be wondering, Jacob, what are you doing here? I know we have that Star Wars championship match coming up, but none of these guys look like people who should be in it. Fun fact, one person is, but no, we are not doing that. We have a special surprise for you. We heard it is somebody's birthday. Whose birthday? I don't know. It's just somebody's birthday. So for that, we are giving you a special gift, a special nerd fights debate live. Yes, you heard that right, live. So if someone starts complaining about how a call went their way and they're like, time out, let's not record this, blah, 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 that's bullcrap. Y'all are all going to hear that. There are no timeouts. This is live. We're doing it for real. You get to see back behind the curtain. It's awesome. We always also thought it'd just be for fun to do it this way. Maybe one time, maybe from now on. I don't know. We'll see where it goes. We'll see how it works. Probably not all the time, but
he froze live.
He froze live?
Keep going. Is everyone frozen? Was it me? Nope, Ruben's there. He's smiling.
Just you, I guess.
There he is.
Okay. And with that rude interruption, thank you for that, Alan.
No worries.
We have a great nerd fight for you today. How great, I don't know. There's a little bit no prep time, so let's just get into it. I have two great people here to help me judge, to enjoy this, whatever you want to call it, this one time, who knows, however many times thing. Just join in on the fun is what we'll say. First person, straight to this side of me, Matty G. Matty G, are you ready to have some fun?
I'm always down for fun. I could take that the really wrong way. It is after dark, but I'm going to keep it PG just in case somebody else says it. But no, yeah, this is going to be fun. I've seen both of these people debate, and I know Ruben's got kind of a silver tongue. Nicky knows his nerd, his nerdgasm, whatever you want to call it. So this can be fun. And then, always getting to chat with the spaceman is always a good time. So what the hell?
All right. And speaking of the devil, just a couple spots over, Alan, the spaceman shepherd. Alan, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. I'm excited to be here with you gentlemen. I'm always excited to see how my man Ruben can do. No bias. I'm going to judge it, right down the middle, every point, Nicky. But it'll be good. It'll be fun. I've seen Nicky do his thing too, so this will be great. I'm excited to have fun with this. Let's go.
All right. And this wouldn't be a nerd fight unless we had two competitors going at it. We have first the gentleman right below me, everyone's favorite 13-year-old. But he's not actually 13. Joke's on you. We have Nicky, the Arsenal Sullivan. Nicky, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to win. I'm gonna crush him. I feel like Mr. T in Rocky 3, like just ready to. That's how I feel right now. I can't talk like that, but if you see my face, that's how I feel.
I'm a little surprised you didn't go with an Arrow or Arsenal reference. Because you are wearing the jacket, but hey,
I just watched a bunch of Rocky movies. I don't know.
Okay, to each their own. You do whatever you want to do. And on the other side of him, again, directions are hard. That side, do a little snake there. We have the Kingslayer, Ruben. Ruben, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I'm really excited about this match. I love all four questions, and that's very rare for me to actually like all these questions. So I'm looking forward to stomping on this little Arsenal hoodie gang banger like person over here. Yeah, I can't wait to teach him a lesson and not to mess with, the true champions of the league.
Definitely. Well, without further ado, let's get into it because I do want to go to bed at some point tonight. So hopefully this is over quick, but I will not be ruling in that favor. Let's just kick some butt. May the best man win.
He was so excited. He said, I know we're going to have a good time.
Yes.
After I unfreeze. And that's basically what's going to happen. There he is, Big Papa, back in the house.
Okay. Am I freezing everyone else, or is it just Alan?
Just Alan.
Just Alan.
Oh, just
Okay.
me.
Just Alan.
Even better. This will be fun.
This is live entertainment, guys.
That
This is how
outer
it happens.
space internet viewers.
Yes. All right. Yeah, they haven't gotten 5G up to the moon yet. So get on that, Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, all you internet companies. I won't say which one I work for, so I don't show biasm. All right. Let's get into it. We have a great Nerd Fights ahead of us. With Nerd Fights, it's just like every other debate that we do. We have 4 predetermined questions that the competitors literally got 30 minutes ago. Again, peek behind the curtain because it's always fun. We will give each competitor a 90-second opener. Pretty much tell us what your answer is. Tell us why that's your answer. Do whatever you want. It's your 90 seconds. After each competitor's 90-second opening, we will move on to a 5-minute free-form debate. That is a debate where you are free to form whatever you want to do. That's why it's called free-form. Pretty much fight it out. Just don't be too violent. We do want to keep this PG. If there's any talking over each other and we cannot hear what's going on, I will implement something called a timeout rule. And yes, I have 3 kids, all under the age of 5. I have no patience. I will implement that rule if I need to. Pretty much we will stop for 10 seconds, pretty much calm you down. I will tell you how disappointed I am in you. All that fun stuff that your dad always tells you, because I am your dad now. And then after the 5-minute freeform debate, we move on. Each competitor gets a 60-second closing. This is your final pitch. Sell us why you picked that answer, why your answer is the right answer, and why your opponent's answer is the wrong answer. The only rule we have, other than the timeout rule, is you do have a 1-minute extension. You can use this however and whenever you want to. I say that you can only use it in your opening or closing. But yeah, if you want to build up an argument a little bit more, hit an extra home run, whatever you want to do. The only thing I ask is before you start talking in your question, be like, hey, Jacob, before I start this, can I get my extra minute? I'll say, yeah, sure. And don't worry, I won't be that guy if you're like, so this, oh, Jacob, can I use my 1 minute? If you are starting your argument and then realize, hey, I want to use it, I'll still let you use it. It's just not with 5 seconds left. You can't be like, oh, Jacob, can I use my 1 minute? I'm going to say no. And tell you how disappointed I am in you. Again, everything your dad says. We are going until someone reaches 3 points. For y'all who are good at math, you will know that first to 3 usually means 5 questions. Jacob, you said you only had 4 questions. Well, hopefully we don't have to move on to the speed round. If we do, if it is 2-2 after this, we will move on to a speed round, and I will explain those rules if that happens. So, without further ado, we have the first question in the Wizarding world. Your question is, who was the worst character portrayal in the Fantastic Beasts films? Ruben, we're going to start out with you. You have 90 seconds to open up this argument, to open up this match. Time starts when you start talking.
Okay, so whenever I'm trying to think of a character that I felt like was a poor portrayal, the character wasn't justice, and there was more that they could have done with this character. Immediately, the first thing that comes to mind would be Ezra Miller's Credence. 100%, this guy let us down not just once but twice. In both films, we saw a very, very disappointment from him as an actor and the character development as a whole. The first movie was a complete letdown with his character. His character was completely pointless. He was just a crybaby, a whiny little language, but he was a little bitch. That's all he was throughout the entire first movie, and it was completely useless, pointless to the plot, except for like the obscurest. But again, it could have done so much better. There could have been a lot more character development. Going to the second movie, thought there was going to be improvement. Fortunately, still let down. Once again, he's still a little bitch, except for he's a bitch traveling around the world, and that's the only big difference. And yeah, there was a big reveal at the end, but again, that reveal made it even more so worse for this character, because this character was tied to one of the greatest families ever, one of the greatest wizards ever, and there was still that disappointment from the character leading up to that. So now that name is completely ruined for me. Like that character ruined a wonderful family name based off of his performance in this series, the Fantastic Beasts films. So that's pretty much all I have for right now. I have a lot to say about my opponent. Let's go.
All right, so we have Ruben picking Credence the Bitch. All right, Nicky, you have 90 seconds to open up your argument. Time starts when you start talking.
Bitch.
That was Ruben. Ruben called him the bitch. I'm just repeating.
I called him a bitch. Say how it is.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's go.
Time starts when you start talking. So you have 90 seconds to open.
The worst portrayal of this character in this franchise is by far Eddie Redmayne as Newt Scamander. I mean, you're trying to portray this emotionally disconnected, socially disconnected man, where we've seen in other properties where that sort of character can really be like this loving character, this beloved character that is really easy to gravitate towards. One of the things about Newt Scamander, about Eddie Redmayne's portrayal of Newt Scamander, is that you just don't connect with him. I think it's Eddie Redmayne's face. I mean, speaking of bitch, it's something about his face. Every time I see Eddie Redmayne's face, I'm sorry, he's a great actor, but every time I see his face, I can't connect with that character. And he's got all of his animals. He's got this briefcase full of animals. He's connected with these animals, I guess. I don't connect with the animals either. And that's because I don't connect with Newt Scamander. So I would say Newt Scamander, Eddie Redmayne's portrayal of Newt Scamander, that's the worst portrayed in this franchise so far. We'll see what happens down the road. But I'm going to defer the rest of my time for now.
All right. And Nicky going with Newt Scamander, the worst. Not a bitch. That's Credence. So he already takes that title. So with that, we have 5 minutes to fight it out. Time starts when one of y'all starts talking.
Okay, so first off, I have to disagree with the fact that Credence is the worst portrayal. So the first two movies, it's the fact that you don't know who he is. You don't know who Credence is. Once you find out who Credence is, you can watch those movies in sort of like an Emperor Palpatine type way and just watch it and see that, oh, this is the story of Credence. This whole entire franchise, this Fantastic Beasts franchise, is a story of Credence, and we haven't seen where he's going to go yet. And it might not be the strongest portrayal of any character so far, but I'd have to say, after seeing that second movie, Credence is the character that I gravitate towards the most. I want to see what his story is from here on out.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna go ahead and touch up on a couple things that you said. First of all, you brought up that your biggest argument, your biggest selling tool as to why Newt was the worst portrayal is because his face looks like a bitch. That does nothing for me. It's not his face matter. It's about how his character portrayal, the storyline, the lines, everything. That's what dictates if a character does well portraying a character. We already knew who Newt Scamander was because of the books and because of the films. We knew what he was going. We knew he was a person that was shy, that was nervous. And he did that really well. And you brought up the love for animals. He does actually show attachment to his animals. He gives them all names. He has tons of different creatures, tons of different magical creatures. And he has names for each and every one of them. And each one he connects with has a deep connection to, including in the second Fantastic Beasts film. You look at Pickett. Pickett was someone who was very helpful to him. He was very loving, so much about him, and he would not let anything happen to him. Same thing for Frank the Thunderbird. These are all characters that he cares so much about, loves these characters, and he does his best to care for them. You look at someone like Credence. Credence does nothing. As a matter of fact, you brought up that it's like the story of Credence. You're wrong. It's actually a story of Scamander himself. It's a story of his connection with these creatures, these magical creatures, and building these relationships with them, and actually while going on a journey with them.
So when I hear Credence the word portrayal, when I hear the word portrayal, I immediately think of the actor's portrayal. It's not his face. It's not his facial appearance that I'm saying is bitchy. And that's an unfair statement.
Your exact words was his face reminds me of bitch. It's just
more the way that he facially expresses his connection to these animals, his connection towards the other characters. He's a character that doesn't particularly say much emotionally, but where you would get that sort of emotion is through facial expressions. I just don't think Eddie Redmayne does a good job at playing the character. I don't connect with the character because of his portrayal of it. You may have read something in books before.
And you
but
think
I gotta be
Ezra
honest, I'm
Miller?
a movie fan. I don't read books. I just see the movie, and I just gravitate more towards Credence's character. I think his story. I think this is going to be the through line with him. I think that's going to be the through line. Him and Grindelwald, whatever is there. I don't think this is the story of Newt Scamander. I think it should be the story of Newt Scamander, but ends up not being because Eddie Redmayne is that leading man.
Okay, see, this is what's bothering me though. You didn't even think that Credence was even a public character, like an interesting character, until you brought up the second movie. That's my issue with them, is that like we're looking at the Fantastic Beasts as a whole. We're not looking at just one Fantastic Beasts movie or like all of them. The first film, he's completely useless, completely pointless. There's nothing that makes us gravitate to him. And the only reason why we have any interest in him at all to begin with is because the name Dumbledore is used at the end of the second film. That's the only time he becomes even remotely interesting. You want to talk about poor portrayal? Ezra Miller did a horrific job of portraying this character. There was nothing likable about him. He didn't establish any kind of connection. Like the closest thing he had was Nagini, and there was nothing even no strong connection. Yeah, she did a really great job of showing their relationship between them two. But when it came to Ezra Miller, he was like a blank board.
No, I think he does a great job at portraying his character. This sad orphaned character that doesn't have a home. You feel bad for him. I feel bad for him, at least. I think I much prefer his portrayal of this character than Eddie Redmayne's portrayal.
We've seen that multiple times, though. Much better. We've seen it done so much better in so many different films. When you look actually over at Eddie Redmayne's character for Scamander, his care for these creatures, like you're talking about how you don't actually see the emotion he cares for these. He is literally in tears when one of his creatures.
Creatures. You see Ezra Miller interact with human beings.
That actually. Okay, but that's not what the character is. The character is supposed to be someone who is so obsessed with these creatures and cares so much about these creatures that no one else cares about.
And I would
that's what you're forgetting. Like, it doesn't matter. CGI has nothing to do with it. Poor CGI, like things that have nothing to do with it.
But
he is establishing a relationship.
From being a story about Fantastic Beasts to being a story about the brother of Dumbledore. That's what they pitched it on.
But that's what you're trying to change it into.
We couldn't connect with Newt Scamander, so they pivoted the direction of the franchise.
No, they threw the Dumbledore name in there just to give Credence something of interest about him. They didn't need that with Scamander. They had his relationship with the
Time. Remember, when I say time, that means you shut the fuck up.
Yes, sir.
Okay, exactly. Alan's doing something with his hands. What?
It's like, I guess it would help if I unmute my mic when I yell time.
Might help. All right. So we've had a great 5 minutes there so far. Let's move it on to the closing. Since we started off with Ruben, Nicky, we're going to start with you. You have 60 seconds to close this argument to sell us on Newt Scamander as the worst. 60 seconds on the clock. Time starts when you start talking.
So yeah, like I said, Newt Scamander is just the worst. I mean, I don't connect with him on an emotional level. I would love to connect with this sort of character. I've connected with this sort of character, socially disconnected. Believe it or not, that's kind of how I am. But I just don't feel it with this character. The way that he interacts with the animals, I don't feel any emotion towards that. Now, Ezra Miller's character of Credence the other way, we actually see him interact with other humans. We see him emotionally connect with other humans. We see him be affected by other humans. Newt Scamander, we don't really see much connection between him and anyone. They pivoted the direction of the franchise, I think. It was supposed to be about Fantastic Beasts, and now it's about the brother of Dumbledore, Credence, which is the far more interesting character, which has been portrayed so much better by Ezra Miller. I'll concede the rest of my time.
All right, with Nicky conceding the rest of his time, Ruben, we are moving on to you. 60 seconds. Close out this question. Sell us on why Credence is the worst. Time starts when you start talking.
Okay, so most of the arguments that you're trying to make against Newt actually, or Credence, actually make no sense. You're talking about Newt. So whenever you were talking about Newt, you said that he doesn't connect with humans. First of all, that isn't what it's about, but I will actually list off 3 perfect examples where he does connect with humans. I can give you all their names. Ready? Jacob Kowalski, Lita Lestrange, and Tina. All right, those are people that he actually has strong relationship with. He has a romantic interest with 2 of them. He becomes best friends with the human, and he starts learning to actually have these relationships with humans. And you see him building, you see him going past these creatures that he feels so And you see him stepping out of his comfort zone and interacting with his humans. So he does interact with humans. Whereas Credence, there is no character development leading up to anything. There's nothing building up for this character. He doesn't do anything different. He just acts like a crybaby the entire time. Like, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And he cries about it for 2 movies straight. Boring. And the only reason why he can get interest drawn towards him is because of the name Dumbledore. That's all for him. That name, there's nothing else going for him. Whereas Commander, you actually see love for these CGI creatures. You actually shot yourself in the foot. He actually showed us that he could actually have a relationship with CGI creatures.
Time, Ruben. Goodness.
Daddy says time.
Actually, that was Matt, not me. So, all right. So, great first round question. Matt, we're gonna move to you first. Who is getting your point and why?
This is actually a really difficult one because they both brought up good points and they both contradicted each other left and right. One would kind of stumble towards the rope and come back swinging. Then he'd hit the other one and they would fall back. I think I'm going to go Nicky just by the shortest of margins. I mean, a single word could have changed my mind either way. But I think I'm going to go Nicky just by... If this was the greatest NFL game on turf, the ball would be this close to the goal line. Go Titans.
Okay. All right. So with that, Nicky is getting the first vote. Alan, we are moving on to you. Who is getting your vote and why?
All right. This was, I'll echo Maddie a little bit. This was very, very close, gentlemen. You both had some very good points, very good counterpoints as well. But I think Ruben closed it out the best with his very clear depictions of how Newt grew as a character, and we saw it definitely through the 2 films more so. And I think really the only thing that kind of made the character that I barely remember him, and he was a huge part of the second film, was because he was called Dumbledore at the end. And I really didn't see his growth as a character through 2 films, and I did with Newt Scamander. So I think that's a better portrayal of a character if you actually see the growth that he makes in those 2 films. And Ruben pointed that out in his closing very nicely, so he gets the point.
All right. So with that, we are tied 1 vote to 1. So that means we go to me, or we should go to the live audience. Nah, we're not going to do that. I wish we could do that. Subrath, we'll do that one of these days. I promise. We'll have the third judge be the audience. It'll make finding judges a lot easier because it'll knock it down from 3 to 2. So with my votes, I'm gonna have to go with Ruben as well. Alan, mirroring exactly what you said. It was very close the entire time, but Ruben really hammered it home in the closing. He had a much better closing, in my opinion, and was able to combat everything Nicky said. Nicky, I will say there was one thing you said that really made me think, and not in a good way. You made the comment that that if you get past the first 2 movies, you can watch Credence like an Emperor Palpatine. There are only 2 movies.
No, I know that. I meant more like watching it back now after looking at the second movie where you have the reveal. You can watch it now and just see, oh, this is the story of him. Like that's the story of Fantastic Beasts. At least the way that I've been watching it.
That makes that a little better. I wish you'd have brought that up. Or it'd be better if I just watched the Fantastic Beasts movies. But I've been told that they're garbage. So
I like them. I mean,
they're not good.
I actually enjoy them, to be honest.
Okay. With that, Ruben gets the first point. So we are moving on to question number 2, which is in the category of Marvel. This might be stuff inside or outside of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We don't know. It's all inclusive because we don't segregate like that, or whatever y'all want to use the word for. Marvel is Marvel. It's all tied together. I don't care what you say. And your Marvel question, what is the best Spider-Man film? Ruben, we started off with you in the last round, so Nicky, we are moving on to you, or we're starting off with you in this one, however you want to say it. Nikki, you have 90 seconds to open up your argument. Time starts when you start talking.
In every aspect, you can answer this question. Spider-Man Far From Home is the best Spider-Man movie there is. Score, Michael Giacchino's score is the best score that there is in any Spider-Man movie. Acting, Tom Holland as Peter Parker's Spider-Man is the best Spider-Man that we have had. Not only is it a good Spider-Man movie, it's a good Avengers movie. It's a good epilogue to Avengers Endgame. You have the ramifications of Tony Stark's death. You have Happy Hogan there consoling Peter Parker when he's breaking down crying in that airplane. He fights the best villain that we've seen, Mysterio, Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio, which could be a one-and-done villain or could have ramifications going into the future. Exposes his identity at the end with the greatest cameo, greatest post-credit scene of all time, with J.K. Simmons returning as J. Jonah Jameson. Every aspect of this movie is better than any aspect in any other Spider-Man movie. And I will argue any other Spider-Man movie with that. And I'll concede my time there.
All right, conceding his time, going with Far From Home, the
Hashtag
newest
spoilers.
Spider-Man movie.
Hashtag spoilers.
It's been out for almost a year. If you haven't watched it, it's your fault.
Yeah, you should be watching that instead of this.
No, we need the
Wow.
viewers. That's what brings the monetization. And with that, Ruben, you are the winner. Good job, Ruben. No, I'm kidding. We do have to finish this. We do have to go through the whole argument. So, Ruben, we are moving on to you. Question for question number 2 for your 90-second opener. And again, time starts when you start talking.
Okay, so without a doubt, whenever I'm thinking of the best Spider-Man film, I'm actually trying to think of what actually encompasses Spider-Man as a whole, what actually draws the viewers, what do people want to come and see when they go and watch a Spider-Man film, and what and that this film is willing to take risk. And straight off the bat, like the first thing that should come to anybody's mind is the new Into the Spider-Verse. Now, the reason why I'm bringing up Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse as my pick is because this film actually demonstrates so many different things. It shows diversity. There's not that many superheroes out there that have someone like Miles Morales, someone that has Latino and African backgrounds, and it actually focuses on a different character. It also brings in characters from the past. So like you'll see Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. There's a little Easter eggs in there. You'll see Easter eggs of all kinds, tying in all the different Spider-Mans and bring them all into one universe. And it's a big risk because it brings in multiple different Spider-Man characters, spider characters, and it creates a universe that can be built upon and expand, which they already are starting on, and create an even bigger universe, a new universe of just Spider. And that's what I want to see. And that has so much interest to me and it grabs hold of me. And it's a great film. There's so much I want to say, but I'm going to concede the rest of my time. I'll get into more of that during the debate.
All right, so we have Spider-Man Far From Home, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, the 2 newest Spider-Man movies. I wonder if that's saying something for cinema today. I don't know. I don't read into things. I just watch it as I go on. So we have 5 minutes for these two to argue it out. 5 minutes on the clock. Time starts when someone starts talking.
So I will say that Into the Spider-Verse is a very popular movie. It's a very great movie. And I got to say, it's in my top 3 Spider-Man movies. But at the end of the day, it's an animated movie that has a good voice cast. Mostly of that voice cast, you don't have A-list actors. They're excellent at what they do. But what I am telling you is that Spider-Man Far From Home, you get everything. You get this worldwide summer vacation movie that Peter Parker is going around the world with supposedly Nick Fury taking on these elemental threats who you then find out that, Mysterio. Jake Gyllenhaal is Mysterio, who is one of the greatest Spider-Man villains in all of comics, and they do an excellent adaptation, perfectly tying in Tony Stark and the rest of the Avengers lore to his origin story. I don't think that there's anyone out there that could say that Into the Spider-Verse, which is an animated movie, it's just tough. I always see live action is better than animation, but that's just my personal preference. Everybody's different.
Okay, well, I mean, it's not about your personal preference. You don't get to sit here and say an animated movie does not deserve to be a good movie. That is completely bonkers to think like that, and that's ruining your perspective.
I'm saying I prefer live action animation.
Let me go and focus on why this movie actually. Okay, All right, that's fine. Let me go and explain to you why Spider-Verse actually is a better movie. And honestly, whenever you're saying Spider-Verse is in your top 3 films, Spider-Man films, yeah, I'm glad you said that. But let me tell you something.
Excellent
Far
movie.
From Home is at the bottom of this list, and the reason why. Let me explain to you why. All right, Far From Home actually does some insane stuff. Okay, you brought up that one of the best things about the Far From Home movie is its score. Well, I can tell you someone who had a better score that actually would have been a better movie. You can go back to the original Spider-Man trilogy. That score is iconic, and we actually see parts of that inside the Spider-Verse. You don't see that at all in Far From Home.
It's
that
true,
score is
but the
much
score
better.
in the
You
other
want to talk about Tom
Spider-Man
Holland
movies
better in
was
Spider-Man? You want to talk about Tom Holland being the best Spider-Man? Fine. If you want to talk about live action and Spider-Man films, he is the best Spider-Man. But guess what? Now Far From Home. You want to know where everybody knows him as the best Spider-Man from? Homecoming. You should have chose that one. You say Mysterio is a great villain. Well, guess what? He was awful. They completely ruined.
Into the Spider-Verse? Who plays Miles Morales?
It doesn't matter. I don't have to. I enjoy the film. That's not what this is about. This is about, who has a greater cast.
Iconic hero is Spider-Man.
You can
have
look.
Iconic villain is Jake
Gyllenhaal.
Gyllenhaal.
Let me talk. I gave you a moment. I sat quiet for a sec. I sat quiet. Let me talk.
Excellent twist at the end.
So I am going to use my timeout here at 3:50. Remember, we do have to let each other talk. So please say what you need to say. Quit talking so they can say what they need to say. And let's get back into this.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and finish what I was saying because I sat by. You say everything you want to say. All right. You brought up another thing that you brought up why the Far From Home was a great Spider-Man film, why it's better than the rest. You brought up J.K. Simmons has one of the coolest entrances in a Spider-Man film. Well, guess what? He's not from. You know what he's from? He's from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films. So why not pick those as the best Spider-Man films? Everything good you're saying about this film, everything you're saying about this film was done better in the Sam Raimi films. Go with them.
When the movie is
Spider-Verse actually took risks
in that movie.
Okay, but same thing for Spider-Verse. Spider-Verse created a whole universe. You talk about how like this film connected a universe that was already created. Spider-Verse just created a brand new universe where they have 3 different films already in the mix right now.
Spider-Verse
that right there actually shows.
They created a limited universe. Here's the thing with the Spider-Verse. We know where it's going. We have no idea where the MCU and the live-action Spider-Verse is going. And that is all in disarray after Spider-Man Far From Home. Peter Parker is outed as Spider-Man. We have no clue where this is going. We have never seen this in live action before. We've never seen Peter Parker known as Spider-Man until he's already dead in your Spider-Verse. That's the only other place we've seen Peter Parker outed as Spider-Man in a movie. This is ramifications.
Okay, no, but they found a way to incorporate Peter Parker into the Spider-Verse films. If you actually watch the film, which I'm starting to think you probably didn't, Peter Parker actually comes from his own universe.
Peter Parker.
So that's what I'm trying to explain to you is that you're talking. Are you all right? So what I'm trying to explain to you is that your biggest argument is that this connects to this. Your film needs other films to actually make it good. You're like, oh, well, this connects to Avengers. This connects to like Nick Fury and connects to all this other stuff. My film is great on its own. It created its own universe on its own, just like everyone goes back to Iron Man. Iron Man created the Avengers.
My film's better on its own because you have Spider-Man against Mysterio, one of the villains that we have never seen in live action before. We've seen Kingpin in live action before. And guess what? The Kingpin in Into the Spider-Verse, I'm not all that impressed versus the other Kingpins that we've seen in live action.
The other Kingpins in live action. There's never been a Kingpin inside a Spider-Man film.
Not in a Spider-Man film. I'm just comparing.
Okay, so this is
on screen.
Daredevil, which has nothing to do with. Okay, whatever. I'll just get to it. My closing.
Ruben, he said time. That means quit talking. Oh my goodness. All right. You were making a comment about I'll do it in my closing. It was supposed to be a joke. You can see me. You can hear me. You should sense my sarcasm. And this is why I try not to be funny a lot of the times, because it always backfires. And this is awkward now. Thank you for making this awkward, Ruben. So now we are going to the closing. Each competitor with their 60-second closing. Ruben, we start off with Nicky, so we're going to start off with you. 60 seconds to close out this argument. Time starts when you start talking.
So the biggest... Oh, actually, before I start, can I use my 1 minute?
Yep.
Yeah, you started talking, so
Okay.
no, I'm not gonna be mean.
Oh, sorry.
Matt,
Sorry.
give him 2 minutes. Give him 2 minutes.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
So you have Ruben,
Thank you.
2 minutes on the clock. Time starts when you start.
Okay, so our arguments as to why Spider-Man film is the best Spider-Man film out there is using items from different films. You brought up that the reason why this film is exceeds other Spider-Man films is because it connects to the Avengers. Well, guess what? The Avengers was established long before Spider-Man was. You mentioned that one of the most iconic scenes, J.K. Simmons. Guess what? J.K. Simmons, J.J. Jameson came from a different Spider-Man film. So you brought up the score. There was a score done much better in a different film. So all your arguments for your characters, Mysterio, you said Mysterio is the greatest villain. Guess what? They completely ruined his villain arc in this film. It was completely torn apart. It's completely different than what everything Mysterio was supposed to be in the comics. And he was so much better. He was more mysterious in the comics. He was just a little crybaby. He was a replica of he was just another person that's Tony Stark did bad, and he wanted revenge against him. That's exactly what Mysterio was, and that has been done like 4 different times already in the Avengers universe. My film creates a whole new universe. You said that you know where Spider-Verse is going. I don't know how you know that, because they just created like 20 different universes with this film. There's so many different ways they can go. They have they have different directions they can take this film. So I don't understand where that logic come back. You bring up iconic villains. Okay, Mysterio is an iconic villain. They did him wrong. But let me talk about the villains in my film, because guess what? There are 6 of them. They have the Sinister Six in there. Okay, that is something that we wanted to see for so long, and it's done so well. And one of the Sinister Six, let's talk about that, is actually Miles Morales' uncle. That right there establishes a strong relationship between the villain and the hero, and it creates conflict between these. You see Mahershala Ali's performance as that character. You get to see him actually turn from dark to light, and it's a great feeling to actually enjoy that film. And you see Spider-Man at his lowest because he is fighting so many different people. He's a rookie Spider-Man, the ones that we love, and we see him
About that, it just you stuck with him. You just stuck with him. That's how it was for me. Oh, look who's back.
We are back.
All right.
Sorry, Jen.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Maddie.
Jens. My internet froze up a little. Sorry about that, Jens.
We thought
You're
you
okay.
died.
You're good. We thought you died. We don't want you to die, brother.
No, my
Your
internet's acting
screen,
out.
your screen froze at the perfect
Yeah.
time too. So
Pretty much.
I did call Matt, kind of give him the brief rundown. Ruben did start his closing, but unfortunately, because of all this issue of these technical issues, Ruben, we're going to do something a little weird. I say a little weird. We always do this in this issue. For the sake of fairness, because we don't want 2 minutes of your argument to be thrown out for someone not being able to hear it, we are going to restart the closing.
Say it exactly the same way.
Fuck.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
I don't even remember half the things I said, to be honest. Okay.
Okay.
I will try my best.
This is gonna help me.
Probably. Okay. So we are going to restart that closing. Ruben, would you still like to use your minute extension?
In all fairness, I'll go ahead and still use it just because
You'll go ahead and still use
I
it.
used
Okay.
it before he left. So
Okay.
yeah.
So Matt, we have 2 minutes on the clock
Yes, we do.
for Ruben's closing. And Ruben, try to say it exactly as you did the first time. Matt, try not to have your internet go out.
That's not happening at all.
Okay. So Ruben, 2 minutes on the clock. Time starts when you start.
Okay, so I'm going to do this the best I possibly can. But so Nicky's arguments for all the arguments for the reason why Far From Home is the better Spider-Man film are pulling elements from different Spider-Man films. We see Nicky talking about the score. Well, there's a better score over in the Sam Raimi trilogy. We see Nicky talking about J.K. Simmons from the Sam Raimi trilogy. Nicky said how amazing J.K. Simmons' appearance was. He's pulling stuff from different films to make his film better. Far From Home is a film that actually does well adding to the Avengers as a whole. My film actually creates a whole new universe. It doesn't need other films to lean on. It doesn't need other films to actually build itself up. It actually creates new films for the future. We actually see Gwen Stacy and characters like that getting their own films in the future, and we can actually see that develop from a whole different universe built because of my films. And you want to talk about villains? Nicky brought up Mysterio. Mysterio is a god-awful villain done in Far From Home. It's completely does a disservice to Mysterio as a character as a whole from the comics. Mysterio is so much better in the comics because it was actually a magical element. And this time they went a technology element, which we've seen multiple times in Avengers. And we've also seen the fact that there's someone that hates Tony Stark because Tony Stark did them dirty. Boo-hoo. That's happened 4 other times throughout the Avengers. My film doesn't need that. It creates a whole new element, a whole new villains that actually doesn't need other films to make it better. And it also, you know, you want to talk about great villains. We have 6 villains in my film, 6 iconic villains brought to life in my film. And we actually get to see one of the villains has a relationship with the main character, Miles Morales. It's his uncle. That right there establishes conflict, relationship. There is nothing between Mysterio and Peter Parker. There's nothing that actually makes that more iconic. All it does is do the whole buddy thing. But my film actually develops a whole new universe to be built just from a singular movie, not lean on past films. And I can see the rest of my time.
Anyways.
I'll take my extra minute.
All right, conceding the rest of your time. Nicky doing it like you should and having us asking for his extra minute before we even get to say, hey, Nicky, it is your time. So, Nicky,
Ruben, tell him to shut up.
You as well have 2 minutes on the clock to close out this question. Time starts when you start talking.
So here's the biggest part of the argument. My movies don't have to be... the question is, what's the best Spider-Man movie? But I'm not arguing against the Sam Raimi movies having a better score. What I'm saying is better score is better than your movie's score. I can't name the composers that did your movie's score. Now, Spider-Man Far From Home has an iconic cast. Tom Holland, Sam Jackson, Jake Gyllenhaal. Zendaya as MJ is even better in this movie. All these characters, this cast of characters is iconic. Now, you said that this movie can't stand on its own. I brought people to this movie that saw this movie that thought it was just a great summer ride, that there was a great summer vacation film where they could go on. The thing about Into the Spider-Verse that was hard for me to get people to go into that theater is that a lot of people will write off the animated movie. Personally, I didn't write it off. I was surprised that it got a theatrical release, but that isn't part of the argument at all. It's a great movie. My movie's just better. Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio is a better villain than Kingpin. Tom Holland as Peter Parker's Spider-Man is a better Spider-Man than both Chris Pine and Jake Johnson's Peter Parker's as Spider-Man. Michael Giacchino's score is better in this movie. And even once the movie is already over, he defeats Mysterio. Mysterio outs him as Peter Parker. Peter Parker is Spider-Man with a cameo of J.K. Simmons. Now, I'm not saying that makes the movie better, but that's just the icing on the cake. And even after that end credit scene, Sam Jackson gets redeemed, who I thought was a horrible Nick Fury in that movie, gets redeemed because it ends up him being an impersonation of Nick Fury. He ends up being Talos. And yeah, it does work off the other MCU movies. But because we already have that history established, we're already connected to the characters in play. So everything that happens to Peter Parker in this movie, everything that happens to John Favreau.
Gotta remember to unmute myself. All right, another great debate so far. Alan, we are going to go to you first. Who gets your point in this argument and why?
He froze for me.
Everyone move.
It's your pick, Alan. Who gets your point, Alan?
Okay, sorry. Jake froze for me. All right. The Ruben's closing was very, very good. However, the middle argument parts, Nicky was stronger overall. So he was giving us not just the ending and the post-credit scenes, but the reason that the meat of the movie was a little bit better by creating its own world and multiple universes as far as going for connecting with the larger MCU, which most people are familiar with, and it not losing ground the way Spider-Verse did. It can lose people by being a little too confusing. So the middle argument is what won it. So I'm going to give my point to Nicky on this one.
Giving his point to Nicky. We're going to go to me next. I will agree to you, Ruben. You did have a great close. It was leaning me towards you, but Nicky also had another great close. So really keeps me right in the middle. It's great. Ruben, there's one thing that you were saying that made a lot of your argument null and void. You made the comment about Far From Home, how it has to rely on the MCU, and a lot of stuff with the MCU ties into Far From Home, whereas Spider-Verse can stand alone on its own. Literally, you opened up saying Far From Home is a better movie because the score alludes to the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans. There are all these Easter eggs to the other Spider-Man movies, and it kind of knocked you down a little bit. But then Nicky really leaning on why he didn't like Into the Spider-Verse because it was animated. This was another really, really close one. I don't know who to vote for on this one. I'm not going to lie. So I am just by the slightest of margins. Rock, paper, scissors, Ellen. That's 3 choices, and I can't pick 3. I have 2 to pick from. I get the points. No, I am barely going to give it to Ruben. Just because with that argument that I said that made a lot of your argument null and void, you did build on the fact that Into the Spider-Verse does build up on its own too, and it can be by itself even without all the Easter eggs. So Matt, we are tied 1 point to 1 point. It goes to you. Who gets your point and why?
So I'm gonna check out, guys. See you later. Now, in all honesty, God, I was really hoping Jacob was gonna pick someone just so I didn't have to vote.
I did pick someone.
Okay, let me rephrase
You're hoping
that.
you picked me.
I was hoping you 2 idiots had agreed, but you know, it is what it is. Because you're right, they both, you know, built their arguments, they knocked them down a little bit, but then they also rebuilt them kind of back and forth. I do like the fact that Ruben talked about it. Spider-Verse is world building because you see these various characters and you can jump off and go to different plane universes, what have you, and go on an adventure with them. And then Nicky brought up the fact that, you know, this does tie into the MCU, so you never know. We might have a, you know, one of these days a magic portal opens and Doctor Strange is there. So I'm gonna go Ruben. Yeah.
And with that, Ruben gets the point and gets a 2-0 lead. I almost
like
made us
this
have to
live.
go.
I don't like this live.
I almost had to go to the live viewers to see who would vote for, and we would have given it to Spider-Man 2, which unfortunately was not picked, Subrath. So
Shut up,
now
Subrath.
we're
I'm
still
a
at.
Subrath.
All right, so Ruben, I agree. Spider-Man 2 is the best one, but y'all didn't bring that up, so I couldn't flex my Spider-Man 2 knowledge either. Subrath, I am sorry. So with that, again, Ruben, you are winning 2-0 as we move on to the third question in the category of DC, everyone's favorite detective comics, because there are no other comics about detectives. Don't fact check me on that, please.
They're good ones.
That's true.
Oh,
The question in DC Who should direct Aquaman 2 if James Wan isn't attached? Since we started off with Nicky and the last one, Ruben, we are starting off with you. 90 seconds. Time starts when you start talking.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and talk about my director. So the director I chose is someone that's already established that they could make a good DC superhero film. It's someone that can actually show that they could do something with Aquaman, which has light humor and it has humor in it. It has action and it has some horror. And without a doubt, the first person that comes to mind is someone that had great success with Shazam, David Sonberg. Now, the reason why I chose David was because, like I said, David actually has experience with horror elements, which Annabelle creation. He also has experience with superhero movies, Shazam. And these elements actually tie into Aquaman a lot because Aquaman does have some very, very dark places it can go while it still has that humor element it needs to keep because that's what made the first Aquaman great. Had the horror elements and it had the comedy elements. And those, and not to mention David Sonberg, he's on a great roll right now. He has Shazam, so he coming off of that, that's something that's going to lead into his success into an Aquaman 2 if he has to be the one to take over it. And I think he's the best choice. I think DC will be stupid not to even at least consider him. And I will concede the rest of my time.
All right, Ruben, starting it off strong with David Sandberg. Nicky, moving on to you. You have 90 seconds to not to close this out. We just
I'll close it out right
started.
now, baby.
It's late, guys. I'm sorry.
Let's go.
Anyways, you have 90 seconds to open this. 90 seconds on the clock. Time starts when you start talking.
Open it, close it. It's the same button. Okay, everybody. J.J. Abrams needs to be the director of Aquaman 2, which actually makes me hope that Juan isn't attached to Aquaman 2, because I'm not a big fan of Aquaman 1. I think Aquaman 1 is a sad attempt at a Marvel movie by DC, where you have like this fun, lighthearted, it's almost like this national treasure movie with Aquaman, right? But that's why I hope that J.J. Abrams is the director of Aquaman 2. We've seen what J.J. Abrams can do in space. Let's see what he can do underwater in a similar zero gravity element where we can see Aquaman and all the kingdoms of Atlantis united under J.J. Abrams. And that's just one of those things that I want to see is J.J. Abrams. I don't think Aquaman needs to be a horror movie. Frankly, I don't think the Shazam director is even going to get to direct his own sequel. So that's just the one thing. J.J. Abrams just signed a big deal, Bad Robot, with Warner Brothers, and it's supposed that he's going to be working on a lot of DC properties. So that's why I say J.J. Abrams established the tone of the DC universe going forward. Concede my time.
And conceding the rest of your time, as Alan likes to flex his Aquaman. Is that a Blu-ray? Looks like a Blu-ray. I'm more knowledgeable with phones. That's the only technology. I'm sorry, guys. I am limited to what I do and do not know. So we are moving on to the 5-minute freeform debate. We have Ruben with David Sandberg, not Sandberger. Nicky with J.J. Abrams. 5 minutes on the clock. Let's fight this out. Time starts when someone starts talking.
Okay, so J.J. Abrams has already rebooted 2 franchises. Rebooted, quote unquote. They were soft reboots. Star Trek franchise, Star Wars franchise. I think the DCEU, whatever we're going to call it, the worlds of DC, drastically needs a tonal reshift. I think J.J. Abrams is the best guy to do it. And I think Aquaman 2 is the best movie to do it on. Because Aquaman 2, even though it made all that money, is still one of those movies that's kind of divisive amongst DC fans. Some DC fans like it, some DC fans don't like it. Personally, me, I think the tone was the problem with Aquaman. I didn't love the tone, so I hope J.J. Abrams is in there to give a tonal correct. That's why I think that he would be a better director. We've seen him in space. Let's see him underwater. That's pretty much the basis of my argument. But Ruben, you want to talk? This is round 2.
No, you're killing me picking Abrams. Okay, that is probably your worst choice you can go with, especially after Rise of the Skywalker just came out. All right, so let me go ahead and bring up how awful of a choice J.J. Abrams is. Okay, one, I love that you brought up the Star Trek and the Star Wars films that he rebooted because guess what? They were both unsuccessful. Horribly. They both did completely. The only one that was kind of good was
those were financially triumphant.
Let me finish. No.
Rise of Skywalker's on the road to make
beyond.
$1
That's the reason why
billion.
there's no other
You
Star
might
Trek
not
film
like
coming
it,
out.
but everybody else
no,
does.
Okay, but let me finish. Let me
People
finish.
with
I let
money
you talk.
love
Let me go into my thing. I'm just saying. Like, it was not popular. I think 09 was the only one that trilogy, the new trilogy. And I know he did. And I know he did Into Darkness, but Into Darkness was god awful. But that's my point. My point is that J.J. Abrams has tried to prove himself about rebooting a franchise, and he did god awful. Force K was decent, but Rise of Skywalker was completely bombed. That's the worst.
An opinion that finances
it
will
was like
disagree.
everyone. It's all over the news. Like, it's a fact. The
Finances
fact
will
is J.J. Abrams
disagree.
did an awful
Rise of
job
Skywalker is
rebooting
on
the
its way
Star Wars
to
franchise. It's
make
just a fact.
almost as much money as
And,
Last Jedi did.
even if it makes money, it's been. My point is that J.J. Abrams is the worst person just for that squarely alone. But let's that you completely shut down James Wan on saying that he did an awful job. You didn't like the first Aquaman. Well, guess what? You're a very rare bunch of people, because that is.
I'm not a rare bunch of people. That movie made the money that it did because there was nothing else playing at that time. We're not arguing James Wan. We're arguing why J.J. Abrams would be a better director. J.J. Abrams is going to take over if James Wan cannot.
You won't let me get to that. That's my point. Is you want to talk about the tone. You want to talk about the tone of Aquaman, how Aquaman was a different tone. Okay. Well, guess what? That's because the tone for the DC so far has not been working. Ever since they switched his tone to go towards the Aquaman, which was a horror.
That's what I'm saying. They don't have an established tone. J.J. Abrams has an established tone with Star Trek and with Star Wars.
Shazam was an action. What was a horror?
Shazam was all over the place.
Say what you want to say, and then I'm going to say what I want to say, because I'm not going to keep you interrupted. Go ahead.
The beginning, it was like a horror movie. At the end of it, it was like a Disney Channel movie. J.J. Abrams would be the best person to come in there, establish the tone with the new DC universe, and get him underwater. See what this visionary director, J.J. Abrams, who has shot underwater scenes with Lost, not Penny's Boat, would be excellent at directing an Aquaman 2. This is the guy you want. You don't want a horror director directing Aquaman 2. That's just me.
Okay, but that's the point I'm trying to make right now, is that so far these horror directors, David Sandberg, James Wan, these are horror directors that came and did a superhero movie and it was successful. You're talking about bringing J.J. Abrams, someone who rebooted a franchise. And you're like, oh, he did good with space. The thing is, he didn't do good with space. He did a bad job. That's exactly why you get so much heat right now.
Rise of Skywalker made more money than Shazam. Pretty sure Star Trek made more money than Shazam. Pretty sure Star Trek Into Darkness made more money than Shazam. Pretty sure Star Trek.
Everything you need to say, because you're not letting me get my words in at all. So
you get your words in. You're talking. You're saying you're not letting me get my words in while you have time to get your words in. You have plenty of time. I'm going to get my words in because you're not saying anything.
Go for it. Go.
Why is your director better than mine?
Like, go ahead.
Okay, fine. J.J. Abrams is the right director because J.J. Abrams brings bank.
Time out.
I think there's like a delay.
Oh my god!
I think it's a timeout. That's what it is, Nicky. Okay. I don't even know what to say about this. I'm just disappointed in both of y'all.
I'm getting radio silence when I talk. So that's
fine. Time starts now. Go.
Actually, time's up.
Okay, there you go.
Time is up. Never mind.
Yeah. I'll rely on my closing.
Okay. That's a good thing to do, Ruben. So, Nicky, we are starting off with you on your 60-second close. Now it is actually time to close it out. Remember, your pick is James Wan. Why should he take over Aquaman 2? What did I say?
J.J. Abrams.
I thought that's
James
what I said.
Wan.
Oh, James Wan.
Yeah.
Their names are so similar. I have them written down like right on top of each other. So, J.J. Abrams, why should he direct Aquaman 2? 60 seconds. Time starts when you start.
So I think the reason J.J. Abrams should direct Aquaman 2 is because the DC universe is in desperate need of some tonal stability. And J.J. Abrams, say what you will about The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker, Star Trek Into Darkness, those movies have consistent tones for their franchises. And J.J. Abrams, he's going to be the guy moving forward with DC, whether you like it or not. So it's best to have him right there in the driver's seat, directing Aquaman 2, the first production that they're really going to have access to Bad Robot for. So get him in there, have him start the tone with Aquaman 2, and then if that's a success, move on to Justice League 2. Move on to whatever. The sky is really the limit. You could do anything in the DC universe with J.J. Abrams. And Aquaman 2, since it's the first movie that's there, it's the perfect place to start.
All right. And with that, Ruben, close out this argument, close out this question. 60 seconds on the clock. Why should David Sandberg direct Aquaman 2? Time starts when you start talking.
You brought up that I'm trying to find, who's the best director. I'm not trying to find the best director. I'm trying to find who's the best director for a DC film at this point to do the next Aquaman. And I think the best option is to go with someone who already proven success in the DC universe, and that is Shazam and David Sandberg. You want to talk about someone completely changing the DC? You're right. The DC does need to change, but it already has with the success of Aquaman, with the success of Shazam. These are films that actually they changed. This is when they changed. They changed. They added the humor. They had horror directors come in and do a superhero movie, and it was successful. It actually worked. You bring someone like J.J. Abrams in, who fucked up not one but two different franchises, and you're comparing Space to Water, which is great. Fine, compare that because that even proves my point even more. J.J. Abrams is not right for the job at all. He is not. Put him in another franchise that already did well with the first film, and you're gonna let him ruin the sequel like he did with Star Wars and Star Trek.
Time. All right. And moving on to the judging, I must say I disagree with every single thing y'all said. I'm a big Rise of Skywalker fan. I also like Aquaman and Shazam. And Nicky, you just hurt me.
I love
You
Rise of
just hurt
Skywalker.
me.
Rise of Skywalker is my favorite movie this year.
And Ruben, you hurt me too, saying that he has trashed two franchises. Shut up.
And saying that Shazam was a success.
Right here.
Point of interest on that. Before we go any further, I did a little fact checking. Star Trek actually has a 90% on the tomato meter. Into Darkness has a 70. Hold on. Has a.
All right. So real quick, for the record, that's not something you're supposed to do in a debate match. Just FYI.
Actually,
you're not supposed to have two last rounds either, but that's okay.
I'm listening and fact checking because what you actually said was that he destroyed that and it was critically, and so I actually was checking on what you were saying. So no, what I did
Let's
was
vote. Let's vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just get to the vote because that's not at all how a debate is supposed to go.
No, you should actually fact check in a debate. You see it on movie fights. Plus, if someone brings up like a bullshit statement that has no factual
That's
whatever I'm trying to think of, that's not factually correct at all. You can't bring up to it. So it is something you should do in a debate. So now let's get on to the voting. I'm going to go ahead and go first on this one because that's how the cards fly. And Nicky, I heard a lot of give it to JJ because the DC universe or the worlds of DC, whatever you want to call it, needs rebooted. And Ruben, you were able to counter that. You flat out said that yes, they do need a tonal shift, and they did it with Aquaman and with Shazam, and they are starting to take a step in the right direction. So JJ would be a great option if they were rebooting it. However, they shouldn't reboot it right now because they are starting to get in the right direction. Plus, going with someone who has already shown that they can do a DC superhero movie, alluding to the dark stuff that happens in the comics, being able to bring that into the movies. Ruben, I'm going to give you the point on this one. And Matt, I'm going to go to you next.
They both had pretty interesting choices. I like Nicky's choice of J.J. Abrams because, like he said, what he did in space was really cool. But he didn't really explain what he could have done to it. Ruben, on the other hand, said, look, this director has kind of the darker elements, because we can all admit Shazam does have some pretty dark elements. If you're, been around being a single parent or not having a parent around, you kind of understand. And then it also has the family and comical aspect. So keeping up with what they're doing, I think Ruben won the debate.
All right, and with that, Ruben gets the third and final point, which means, and your winner, the Kingslayer, Ruben, Alan, we weren't able to get to you. What were you thinking? Who would have gotten your point and why? Because I love opinions.
I would have actually gone with Nicky, mainly because he did kind of say that the reboot thing needed to happen, but he sprinkled in there a little bit that JJ's tonal consistency would have matched Juan's a little bit more than Sandberg's for the action sequences and the underwater sequences. So I kind of agree. And then I really like Nicky's closing with the JJ doing Justice League, doing the next whatever films, because that's the biggest thing that DC needed, was some consistency if they were going to go with that consistency route, and being all interconnected the way they are. But Ruben's arguments were great as well. Other than the fact that he trashed Rise of Skywalker, which I loved as well.
Movie, yeah.
But that's okay. That's okay.
We can forgive him.
We can forgive him, exactly.
Can we debate that?
I actually do love Rise of Skywalker, by the way.
Yeah, I was about to say, I
didn't see it with
really liked it.
I just needed to trash talk it.
Hey, no worries.
Yes.
I was about to say, did you just tell me you liked that?
All right. So now
I
let's
did tell
move
you that I
it
liked
into
it.
the.
I told everybody I liked it.
We're live, guys.
Let's move into the post-match interviews. We're going to start with our second place finisher today. Nicky, you unfortunately were knocked out, but I just want to say you did great. This was one of the better matches, better debates that I have seen and hosted in a while. Very back and forth. I will say every time I voted for Ruben, it was slightest of margins. And enough of me kissing your butt. How are you feeling after this?
As John C. Reilly once said, nothing wrong with silver. Nothing wrong with silver, man. Shake and bake.
Shake and bake.
Something Will Ferrell said, if you're not first, you're last. So take with that what you will. But you're right. There is nothing wrong with silver. Ruben, you took the win. How are you feeling after that bloodbath that was this debate?
Damn.
Yeah, so obviously we both got really heated. I think it's funny because this was my first knockout, so this is, I guess, my first unanimous win or whatever. But I felt like this was probably one of the hardest I've ever fought, and I think it's because all the questions I was passionate about. And I learned something I didn't know about the fact checking thing, so I apologize about that. That's something I need to learn as a commissioner. So I obviously need to make sure I'm aware of that. But yeah, it was a hard fought match. I think I should have lost the Spider-Man one. I think Nicky did do better in the Spider-Man debate. I think, in my own opinion, I won the other two. So obviously judges felt that way. But it was intense. I've never seen myself get that heated over a debate. I get heated over debates. Alan knows that, but not that much. And I can't believe how heated it got. So yeah.
All right. Now we're going to move on to Alan. Alan, you were not expecting to judge this match. We were expecting to do something a little bit different. But how are you feeling after this?
Feeling pretty good. I mean, it's always good with these battlers, get as heated and as passionate. And the cool thing about Ruben and both Nicky as well is they have a lot of passion for it. They really go for the gusto when getting their opinions out there, and really having good counter arguments for the other one. Because a lot of times these debates, they don't really punch each other as far as I'm going to knock down your debate. I'm going to focus solely on arguing my case. but they did a really good job of going back and forth, which made it so close each time. So kudos, guys. Good job, and always good fun to watch.
All right. And then moving on to one of my best friends in this league, Matty G. Matt, how are you doing after this?
This was just damn entertaining. I like a match when it's back and forth. I don't like a match where one person controls everything. And I've seen several of those before, but I love matches like this. I've seen Alan and Ruben go toe-to-toe before, and it was great. It was just like this. Nicky, the score doesn't represent how good you are.
Thanks, man.
You're passionate, you're intense, and I'm telling you, there was a couple of times that I literally had to just say what came out because I was so unsure of where I wanted to go. And Subaret dropped in the chat, if Nicky wants to continue competing, I'll have him play a newbie.
Aw.
So with that, Nicky, I don't know if you know any newbies who are in the Nerd Fights bracket. But is there anyone out there you would love to take on and try to get that win against?
Subaret. Oh.
Brett Sheridan, I'm calling you out.
Who?
Brett Sheridan.
Brett Sheridan?
He'll do it.
I don't think we can afford him yet, but
No, he'll do it. I guarantee you. Show this game. Brett Sheridan, I'm calling you out.
The sniper. What do they call it? The sniper?
I'm calling you out.
So Ruben as the Nerd Fights commissioner, it is your job to get that going. But I have important news. I am taking my rights of showrunner status to do something. Yes, to do something. Because we love for everything to matter. We love having stakes in everything. Me personally, I'm more of a medium well kind of guy when it comes to my steak. So with this, and Ruben, I hope you're okay with it, because if you're not, too bad. So because you won this fantastic debate, I say that you should play Kurt Kolakowski in your next debate. And maybe that'll have some number one contender ramifications or road to a number one contender ramifications. I do not run Nerd Fights, so I don't know exactly what you're planning on doing. But I think as a reward for winning, that should be your prize, is you get to take on Kirk now in whatever you want to do with that.
Captain Kirk.
How do you feel about that?
Wow.
I know if anyone watched the last match, that's who initially I was supposed to play. I do want the match against Kirk, because I know Kirk is probably one of the best debaters out there. So I do want that iconic match against him. Hopefully be willing to do it. And yeah, go from there. Like I'm 2-0 now officially. I have a knockout on my belt now, which again, it was great, a tough opponent. It was against a really good opponent. But I'm going for blood. I want that championship, and I want to prove that I can actually take that championship before I become commissioner, so that way people don't see that favoritism thing in there. That's my goal.
All right, and I can't wait to finally debut in Nerd Fights and kick all your asses. But we're not there yet. So I have been your 48th favorite dad in the family community, Jacob West, Papa West. That has been Dr. Spaceman, Alan Shepard, the Kingslayer, Ruben Colin, Nicky the Arsenal Sullivan, and of course, Matty G.
Keep an eye out for
Happy birthday, Christian Bale.
Happy birthday, Christian Bale. We did this for you.
Time out.